you for joining us for the In Your City show. And our hot list guest with us today is Mary Enderle. Correct?
Yes.
All right. And she is with us, and she has a very heart-compelling story that has led her to some inspiring next chapter, as I guess what we would say. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for bringing the lovely Sophie with you. Sophie, yes. She's so beautiful.
Thank you.
So there's a story
She's
behind Sophie. I know, she's like, I heard my name, right?
Yes.
So there's a story of why this beautiful dog is laying next to you, and there's been some changes in your life that's led to a journey that you've shared in a new book that's out. And so, you know, where do we begin except for, I remember us having lunch and we were talking about life and getting ready to get together to have another lunch and talk more, and life quickly changed for you in an instance. So yes. Tell us what you'd like to, that's led you to why you're sitting here right now and we get to meet Sophie.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly and Gordon, for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. So my husband was in the Marine Corps. He served in 1994 to 1998. And our son was following in his dad's footsteps along with his grandpa, so third-generation Marine. So my husband started feeling sick on September 6th of 2022. We had a send-off party for our son on September 3rd of 2022. And my husband just woke up that morning on 9/6 with the stomach flu. He just, you know, stomach pains, all the symptoms that we thought was going to be the flu. On 9/10, my husband was getting awarded and surprised with the service dog through Forgotten Coast Canine Organization. So my husband and I, we had started a side hustle, T-shirts, military T-shirts, dog bandanas to give back to different veteran organizations.
And we remember that when we ran into you at the...
Jared Schmidt's.
Yes. The event.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep, that's right. So because of that, we met several other folks along the way. We got to meet the Forgotten Coast Canine team because they had come in town for the Freedom Jam that same year. So we were planning that year, and I had met the folks, the board, some of the other dogs, the handlers, the people that were working with the dogs. And I actually got to meet Sophie that spring of that year.
Okay.
Yes. So then my husband woke up sick, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, of all the days for you to get sick, of all the weeks, it's the week that you're getting surprised the service dog, because they were giving 2 dogs away that evening at the Freedom Jam to 2 veterans, and one of them being Brian. So I had to keep it a secret for probably about a good 3 or 4 weeks. So that evening came, and my husband was getting worse progressively through the week. And I said, babe, can you please just get into the building for just 30 minutes? The 3 Rangers whiskey guys were there. Tonto had his vodka line book signing. So they had met Brian the year previously, and they wanted to see him. So I was thinking, well, that's a good way to get him into the building, just for 30 minutes. He's like, I just don't feel good. I feel terrible. So that evening he stayed home, and I was really upset with him. So I got home that evening. So I had to go up on stage, get his award and certificate, and I didn't feel right getting it for him because I'm not a veteran. So, and then that next day, Jake was leaving for boot camp. So on 9/11, we were dropping our son off to go to boot camp. And that morning, he was helping me empty the car, and he looks at my car, and he saw the certificate that had the Forgotten Coast Canine logo on it and his name. And he said, what is that? And I said, well, that's why I needed you at the building last night for the event, because they were awarding 2 service dogs that evening to 2 veterans, and you were one of the 2. And he's like, are you kidding me? I said, no. I said, you're going to get awarded this service dog. He was so excited, and it just made sense because we're going to be empty nesters, a Marine spouse, Marine mom, soon to be. Our son's leaving for boot camp, empty nester with our daughter, being in news media as well. So it's just going to be he and I, and we were going to be the ambassadors for the program and bring Sophie around to try to help bring awareness to this Forgotten Coast Canine program, because they provide service dogs for veterans and first responders who are suffering from PTSD. Because other veterans and first responders can see it in others if they're suffering from PTSD as well. So they could see it in Brian. So on 9/11, we drop our son, Jake, off for MEPS and at the Renaissance Hotel. And he flies off to MCRD in San Diego on 9/12, turns his phone in. We've got no contact with him for 13 weeks. 9/13, Brian's progressively worse over a 7-day period. And I said, there's just no way that the flu lasts 7 days.
Yeah, and getting worse.
Yes, and dehydrated. I said, let's just go to the ER, let's get checked out, let's get an IV going because you're dehydrated, clearly. So I took him to the ER, 3 hours goes by, and the doctor comes in, looks at us, and says, I'm sorry, but there's a mass on your pancreas, and we have to do emergency surgery to put a stent in your bile duct. So right there, it was just a punch to the gut.
Yeah.
And all the things, and all these things racing through my head. Both of my children on 2 opposite ends of the U.S. at the time, and so he and I were just looking at each other like, now what do we do? I'm like, okay, let's not think the worst. So, we had to go through all the motions and everything. Sure. So a few weeks later, they did some follow-up exams, and then they were able to determine that it was actually stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and it already spread. So it was in his lymph nodes, liver, stomach lining, and there's spots on his lungs.
And no symptoms until the 9th.
No.
I mean, that just boom, all of a sudden he's
and
sick.
That's how it works.
To be so secretive in the body, to be such a
so hidden.
Yeah, to be such a hidden secret and then just come out like a bomb. And I'm so sorry because it was very quick.
So I had to call the Red Cross. The Red Cross put me in touch with Jake's command center, and then his senior drill instructor let Jake FaceTime home, and we were able to have constant communication when they could. So shortly after that, Brian took a turn for the worst, and he was gone on November 4th of 2022. So Jake stayed in. Yeah, 8 weeks. He was gone within 8 weeks. So Jake was in the Marines, and before Brian had passed, and when he had that first conversation with Brian when he was out in boot camp, Brian and his dad said, we think it's a good idea that you just stay in. And Jake wanted to stay in too, because if he would have come home for those 5 days, he would have to go back out to San Diego and start all over again. Well, he went out on a buddy system with 3 other boys, so I call them the Fab Four. There was 4 of them that all left together, and they were all together in the same platoon in the same company.
For that, to stay together.
Yes, absolutely. So Jake ended up finishing boot camp. He stayed in even during the funeral. So because of the Schmitz family and the community that we have, such support that we have with the Little Black Book, Women in Business, they were so supportive. The Schmitz family, because being a Marine family and that brotherhood, Mark Schmitz was so wonderful, and he helped FaceTime and video the funeral and the visitation so that Jake could be, because he was out in the field in doing rifle qualification while he was in boot camp. So just having that community and that family and camaraderie was just so beneficial and so wonderful to us, because my son is on the West Coast. So
right.
And so from that, of course, your husband was supposed to be awarded the dog. You've now told your story through a book called Tenacity.
Yes.
The Grit Collection.
Yes.
And your story is called?
It's called The White Boots.
The White Boots. And
yes.
Tell us the White Boots, and then, of course, you ended up they ended up letting you have the dog to help you through such a traumatic event in memory of your husband, which I'm sure has been such a, I can't even compare, to what you've been through, but Olive, of course, you see her all the time, our life. Dogs are truly a gift from God. They're healing. With loss of my mom, it's not someone, she wasn't living in the home with me and my, but dogs just do incredible service to people with healing their heart, and I would imagine that has just done an incredible service to you.
Sometimes when we're going through grief, though, we want to say things, or we want to talk and say things, but we don't necessarily want someone to tell us things, right?
Yes.
And I think that's why dogs are so important, because they don't talk back.
They just listen.
Yes.
Sometimes they
and
bark.
so supportive.
Look, every time she hears, she knows you're talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is that what then has happened, where you've been gifted this wonderful service dog, which you take her almost everywhere, which is really neat. We were at the event, gala event, and there you're in your gorgeous dress, and there's Sophie right next to you. She makes a lovely date.
Oh, thank you. Yes, she does.
So your story, The White Boot, you named it that because?
So I love country western boots, and I love the country western theme. So right before Brian was getting awarded his service dog, which was a gift to him, my last gift that I received from Brian on my birthday was a pair of white country western boots that I wanted.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh.
So he was getting awarded this service dog, and it was a surprise to him as a gift to him. And so Chris, who runs Forgotten Coast Canine out of Madison, Florida, it's a 30-week program. So Brian was getting awarded 28 weeks online instruction, and then 2 weeks in person with the puppy, and then he'd bring the puppy home, and we would be brand ambassadors for the program. Well, Chris called me up right after Brian passed, and he said, I just want you to know that you will always be part of the Forgotten Coast Canine family. And I don't know what that meant. So shortly, a few weeks after that, he calls me back up, and Jake has already gone back out to School of Infantry to start his journey as a new Marine. So Chris called me up and he said, okay, I've thought about it long and hard, and I'm going to give you my Sophie to be with you as support for you, because I told you that you would always be part of the Forgotten Coast Canine family.
awesome.
It's beautiful.
And because I'm not a veteran, I can't go through the program, so that's why I have her.
Yeah.
And now I have this opportunity to still continue the mission and honor Brian and
Share the
carry on
story.
his legacy.
And so if they want to get your book, tell us how they
Okay.
can get Tenacity,
Yes.
the Grit Collection, and The White Boots is your story within
Yes.
it. How can people get a hold of the book? Is there a site they go to, or contacting you?
Yes, they can contact me, or it's on Amazon.com, and it's through the Grit Collection. Jennifer Bardot
Sure.
is the
She's wonderful.
collaborator. So yes, so she's the one that created the program. So T for Tenacity, and the 40 women and authors inside the book there. And but typically you can find it on Amazon.com, or on my Facebook page has a link as well.
Well, keep sharing your story, as hard as it is, because, you know, that is what it is. It's hard. And sometimes people feel very alone when they're going through something that's really difficult to get through. And you feel like you're the only one that's suffering or that's in pain. And when people know that other things do happen, people do go through pain, they can survive, they can go on. When it feels like you can't, you're a shining, you know, star, showing that, you know, life does get us sometimes, but you can't say
for
it.
other
And
women,
and to know that you know, that you have Sophie now, and the kind people that still kept you in their heart. You know, people need to know and be inspired that there are wonderful things that happen out there. And before we go, which we're out of time, but we're keeping more time, your jackets are for a reason. Of course, carrying on the country theme that you love so much, and this go perfect with your right boots, either one of them. There's something that goes along with those. You actually are making these, and I believe that possibly there's a portion of proceeds that goes somewhere from those?
Yes.
Okay.
So making these, it's very therapeutic to make. So I can customize with different colors, and this has the Forgotten Coast Canine logo on this as well. And then if somebody just wants one for like a bridal shower or
that's a great idea.
girls'
right?
night
Right on the
out,
back.
yes.
You can make those, and then again, you're supporting a community that is so strong within your heart.
Yes.
It's been there for you.
I want to be able to give back a portion of the proceeds back to the Forgotten Coast Canine organization, so that other veterans and first responders can get their dogs too.
Oh, absolutely.
And help them with PTSD and overcome.
Oh, well, you are from the city of St. Charles.
Yes.
And on a fun note, what would you say if someone said to you, I want to try something or experience something?
That's
What's
hot in our city.
Yeah.
So where would you take someone that came out of town, and your friends
not
came
from
into
here.
town and said,
You and Sophie would take
what's hot?
them.
Where
What's
can I go
hot?
that's hot? What do you think, Sophie?
Well, on Wednesday evenings, there is country line dancing evening.
There you go.
So
you can wear
there
your white boots and your white
There you go.
jacket.
Yes.
Where do they have country line dancing
It's at Diamond Music Hall on
Oh,
Cave Springs
we were
and 70.
just
a lot
talking
of
about. We
plugs
just had a
today.
music, just had a music guest on. That's going to be their March
okay.
9th playing. So, well,
It's
thank
not
you,
fun.
Mary, so much. Mary Enderle, she is here with us today with Sophie, sharing her story. Check out Tenacity, the book. It's the part of the Grit collection, and then of course look for Mary's story, The White Boots. Oh, we appreciate you so much.
thank you
you
so
for
much.
sharing your story with us.
She's like,
Sorry,
what are you
hi,
doing to
Sophie.
mommy?
It's my mommy. All right. Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
part of the show, part of In Your City Show. Our hot list guest coming from the city of St. Charles, Mary Enderle. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sophie's all excited. She wants a treat.